Part 132. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1316. How's the situation over there? Upon hearing this question, Archmage Baebo laughed naturally. It was a very comfortable and satisfying smile. While smiling, he looked at his junior brother with soft and emotional eyes. This little guy went to play in the elf forest and then in the kingdom of the sun. It didn't take too long, and the work didn't seem to be very difficult. However, unknowingly, the situation there, or in other words, the entire southern part of the New World, the balance of power between the Parliament and the glorious Holy See has been turned upside down. Ah, don't worry. The corners of his eyes slightly curved, and the smile on his lips grew bigger and bigger. A demigod who is inclined to us. Once he truly establishes himself, it will be of great benefit to us. After the sun god recovers, we no longer have to worry about that. He raised his hand casually, and a void of light and shadow bloomed, outlining the appearance of the southern part of the New World. Coast, mountains, cities, forests. To the east is the lush, endless forest, the fertile forest, the torrent forest, and the rain-song forest, surrounding the elven secret realm that has returned to normal. To the west, along the coastline, mountains rise from the ground, and rivers rush from the mountains into the sea. In the mountains, there are dots of stars, cities, passes, and roads, as concrete and tiny as grains of rice, yet clear. And this majestic mountain range was soon divided into two parts and painted with different colors. The south is yellow, golden, warm, and soft, like the sun shining on the earth. The northern part is pure white, the same color as the holy light of the glorious Holy See, spreading all the way to the central coastline. The dividing line between pure white and warm yellow is crisscrossed, constantly pushing here and there, pushing here and there. In the pure white, dots of yellow light ignited from time to time. Most of them were thin, occasionally dense, and sometimes they hooked and even became a small piece. The people of the kingdom of the sun, especially the nobles, still derive their power from the sun god. Archmage Baebo smiled very proudly, pointing to the yellow light among the pure white. The people of the glorious Holy See are not enough, and they are lazy. They mostly turn a blind eye to the local governance. As long as the local people are obedient and willing to pay and hand over things. Greet nodded slightly. There are definitely not enough people. After all, you have to cross the ocean and you have to take huge risks. If the number of colonists and local indigenous people is 1 to 100, it is considered to be a very large number. And what is the result of not having enough people? First of all, if you want to continuously plunder local wealth, you must rely on local people. Secondly, if you want to rule the local people and rely on the colonists, you can't do it even if your legs are broken. Some power can only be transferred to local nobles and let them rule the people on their behalf. Thirdly, as long as the so-called beliefs of the local nobles seem to believe in the Lord of Glory, the colonists would not care much about it. As for what people believe in privately. Before, the sun god was seriously injured and couldn't connect to his people and couldn't provide them with power. His faith became weaker and weaker. Now that he is stronger, his people will definitely come back. The glorious Holy See doesn't care. Gretel's eyes sparkled when she heard this. Archmage Baebo smiled proudly. How can I control it? I can't control it. Most of the nobles in the kingdom of the sun have divine blood, and connecting with the gods is their natural ability. As long as they don't use it in front of the glory Holy See, who knows? When a noble is blessed with power, it will be passed on to his descendants. In a region, as long as a noble is blessed, it will be spread through allegiance, patronage, marriage, etc. Just like what Gretel saw, the little yellow lights were connected into one piece, and then connected into one piece, and then into one piece. If you have power, you will want power. If you have power, you will want more power. Even if the Glory Holy See puts 3 legends there, it can only shrink completely and only keep a few key areas. Therefore, the Mage Tower built by Archmage Baebo in the Kingdom of the Sun is fundamentally, completely, and not dangerous at all. Hey, now we just have to transport the proceeds from the Kingdom of the Sun back. Greet sighed sincerely. If a stable route can be established from the Kingdom of the Sun to the Kingdom of the Eagle, then the Parliament's income channels in the New World will be completely opened. Not only has the channel been opened up, and stable income is rolling in, but also with a wider space and richer resources, I believe that the magicians in the council will have more possibilities for advancement. Ah, this is almost done. Archmage Baebo leaned back and raised his hands slightly. The light and shadow are continuous, and they grow upward. Recently, the Storm Islands are in complete chaos. Those people from the glorious Holy See can't even cure yellow fever. Many ports have been closed, and ships are not allowed to enter the port. If entry is not allowed, no supplies will come in and no supplies will go out. After crossing the ocean, the supplies ship rotted in vain on the ship. The crew endured hunger, thirst, and illness, and looked at the unreachable port. Sugarcane grown in the plantations, refined jaggery, furs, sisal, cochineal, and all kinds of valuable materials rotted in vain in the port. The serfs' year's work was all lost, the adults' and gentlemen's year's income, and the gold coins they relied on to buy armor, weapons, silks, and jewelry, were all wasted. Not to mention, the disease sweeps across everything indiscriminately. Serfs on plantations, servants in estates and cities, and even the colonists themselves fell ill in droves. No one trimmed the flowers, no one wiped the furniture, no one dumped the garbage, no one even cooked. No matter how arrogant the colonists were, they couldn't whip their servants to work when they were sick and dying in bed. What's more, even with a whip, they couldn't whip them up. This is just barely bearable. But even if extraordinary people can be protected from the disease, young children and beloved women will be in constant panic when faced with the disease that sweeps over them. Now, the Storm Islands are in a state of chaos. The Holy See of Glory has urgently mobilized people to contain the plague, but it is only a drop in the bucket. Archmage Baebo couldn't help laughing. On the contrary, here we are, with the blessing of the Lord of Plagues, no one is afraid of the epidemic. It's time to sail and transport. This gap in power is freed up for us. Greet let out a long sigh of relief. The shrinking of the glorious Holy See in the New World means that the power of the Parliament can be more stable and secure. And it also means, elder brother, can you free up your time? Stay here for a while and study the Well of Eternity. Thanks to Adol Simon for tipping 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1317. The Well of Eternity again. The Well of Eternity again. Archmage Baebo felt warm and a little funny. Little Greet, despite the fact that he is studying in the medical field and is thousands of miles away from the Thunderhorn, he will try his best to include him in important projects at any time. What's funny is that you are still a level 13 mage yourself. We are still so far away from the legend. Little one, we should be worrying about you now, not you. You want to take care of us, arrange for us, and wait until you embark on the road of legend and become at least half a legend. But Gretel looked at him eagerly. Archmage Baebo couldn't help but smile and ruffled his hair. Okay, if I have the chance, I will definitely go, okay. I won't give up a good opportunity just because of some inexplicable pride, don't worry. It's you, what's your next plan? Can you tell me? Are you planning to work on the Well of Eternity project as well? Greet shook his head quickly. Participating in the Well of Eternity project, or in other words, participating in the Elves nuclear facility project, is really not his hobby, nor is it the direction of his efforts. And to be honest, this research on blood replenishing magic also gave him a huge warning. His magic foundation is really too weak and he needs to study hard. I plan to learn something in the Elves Magic Academy, Greet said slowly. Start from the ancient Elven language, start from the zero-ring Elven magic, start from understanding the flowers, plants, and trees. Learn little by little, ask the great mages, ask the elders, ask the ancient trees. The smile on Archmage Baebo's face grew bigger and bigger. The foundation is not solid and reliable, the progress is too fast, and the things learned are too few. This has always been the teacher and his worry about Gretel. It's a good thing to advance quickly, but it's a big bad thing if you don't lay a solid foundation. It's rare that Gretel has come to his senses and is willing to spend some time on Yangju Island to study hard and lay a good foundation. Great, that's how it should be. Don't be in a hurry to achieve anything, and don't be in a hurry to advance. Archmage Baebo looked at his junior brother with gentle eyes. The situation in the council towards the glorious Holy See is very good, very good. There is no need for you, a little guy, to try your best to support it. To say the least, you have already made enough contributions and greatly changed the situation. Greet nodded obediently, nodded, and nodded again. Archmage Baebo said slowly. You are not even 30 years old this year, but you are already a level 13 Archmage. Your achievements are far ahead of your age. So, don't be anxious, there is no need to be anxious at all. He is also a nature priest. Beside her, Sarala interjected in a low voice. Archmage Baebo's smile became gentler. Yes, nature priest. The lifespan of high-level professionals is much longer than that of ordinary people. Nature priests bathe in the natural breath and live even longer. So, there is no need to worry at all. The Archmages of Nevis, those in their 50s, 60s, 13th and 4th levels, are all regarded as a group with great potential and hope for promotion, not to mention you are not even 30 years old. You're still a half-elf, so you have more time. Stay here well and learn more. 10 to 8 years, 20 to 30 years, it doesn't matter. Slow down the pace and learn slowly. The further he spoke, the more Greet's face fell. From a fresh, moist, and fluffy peach, it quickly shrank into a dried peach that had been stored for 3 months. Senior brother, it doesn't need to take so long. You have grown up, and senior brother will no longer be in charge of you. Archmage Baebo shook his head slowly. What you learn, how long you learn, and when you learn are all up to you. But little Greet, you have to remember that the more solid the foundation is, the smoother the road ahead will be. Even the teacher has studied on Yangju Island for many years. Greet nodded honestly. He has made up his mind to start learning from the simplest and most basic things, and if necessary, learn with the youngest elves. Face. What is face? I'm a cub. According to the standards of the elves, I am a standard cub. The elders look at me every day, and treat me as a cub, both in words and in words. Isn't it natural for cubs to learn things together? Of course, while arranging courses for himself, Gretel still had to think of ways to find some work for his senior brother. Of course, he once again found the most familiar Elder Fahim. Elder, how is the progress at the Well of Eternity? Do you want to let me go in and take a look? My brother and teacher have done in-depth research on the mysteries of those ores. Elder Fahim looked at him with a smile and shook his head. Before Greet felt cold and rushed to plead for mercy, he raised a finger and waved at Greet. I don't know much about the Well of Eternity. During this period, haven't I been with you, studying blood replenishing magic? Well of Eternity, I have to ask other elders. Greet breathed a sigh of relief. Elder Fahim stood up with a smile and led him out. Come on, I'll take you to find that old guy Amat. In fact, it's not difficult for you to go by yourself, he also pays attention to you, but this is your first time, let the old man take you there. He staggered out, and Gretel followed suit. Stepping out of the research institute, The elder took one step forward, and the wood swished backwards behind him. He took another step, and the wood swished a large length again. Gretel. Elder, please slow down. At your speed, I can't keep up even if I turn into a leopard, no, even if I turn into a bear. Fortunately, Sarah, Bernard, Appa and others all followed. Seeing this, Appa pounced forward and transformed into the form of a silver moon deer on the spot, with silver light flashing on his fur and lightning flashing from his horns. Greet climbed up in a hurry, and Appa spread his hooves and ran at full speed. It didn't take long before he caught up with Elder Fahim. After running half a circle around the small lake, I turned in and entered a quiet valley. Elder Fahim stopped at the entrance of the valley and knocked on a huge cedar tree at the entrance of the valley. Hey, is that old guy Emmett here? I'll bring little Gretel here and ask him something. The cedar trembled a few times. Soon, the top branches of the tree moved away and converged into a bunch inside the valley mouth, making a pointing gesture. Elder Fahim patted the cedar branches and said to Greet, "This is an ancient tree contracted by the old guy. He usually guards the gate at the entrance of the valley. If you need anything, tell it first and don't force your way in. Otherwise, it will hit you with a pine cone." Greet responded with a smile and followed Elder Fahim straight in. Several disciples were surrounding Elder Ahmad, listening to his lectures attentively. Gretel held his breath and listened to the lesson, then stepped forward after everyone had dispersed. As soon as he mentioned the request, Elder Ahmad immediately frowned. "Well, this matter is a bit troublesome. Thanks to @FantasyMoon for the 1,500 starting coins, big brother, if you have an iPhone next time, please use the web version T. If you use the Apple version, Apple will deduct a lot of money and it will arrive 3 months late. It hurts T. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1318. If it had been a few years ago, or when he first landed on Evermeet Island, and heard the words "it's a bit troublesome," Gretel would have started to urge the other party hard and start trying to find a solution. Trouble? What's the trouble? Nothing is unachievable. No matter how troublesome it is, can it be more troublesome than the projects he has done? How could it be more troublesome than him building a bacterial research institute from scratch? How can he beat the whole city and cause trouble for public health agencies? How could it be more troublesome than him being in the hinterland of the elf forest, rubbing it with his hands alone, no, releasing skeletons to rub it with his hands, stirring the ore bucket by bucket, and figuring out how to reduce the fever in the mine? But now, he has learned to sit in front of the great elder with a smile, raising his head in a cute manner, and listen to the great elder continue to speak. Vomit. It's really a bit creepy for someone who is almost 30 years old to have to behave like a cub. At this time, I have no choice but to hypnotize myself. I am a cub, cub, cub. Fortunately, Elder Ahmad, Elder Fahim, and all the legendary elders expressed their appreciation for his well-behaved state. Elder Ahmad stroked his beard, pondered for a moment, and said slowly, "First of all, I am not in charge of the Well of Eternity project. If I were in charge, take your senior brother to take a look. At least there will be no problem. But now, I can only say that I will ask you first." Greet nodded vigorously. Different project teams are responsible for different research tasks. Others cannot insert people into them just because they want to. Even for himself, he would not necessarily be happy if his senior brothers and sisters randomly inserted someone into his research group, but he didn't know their level, research direction, or cooperation. Furthermore, little Greet, the Well of Eternity project is the core and lifeblood of Eternal Meeting Island. Not just anyone can join, or even understand the situation. Gretel nodded again. It's a confidential project, it's a core project, I understand. In the past life, which country's mushroom egg project was not reviewed and reviewed again, kept secret again and again? I'm going to work on a project. I don't know when I will come back. I don't know where I will go. I don't know if I can communicate. It has been decades since I left, and my family has been entrusted to you. After this kind of thing is decrypted, people watch it with awe, but those who are in the game, who has not swallowed the bitterness silently? Of course, little Gretel, you are our compatriot, and we have great trust in you. Seeing his cooperation, Elder Emmett's expression softened. Your senior brother, although he has not stayed on the island for a long time, we are willing to believe in your guarantee and believe that he has good intentions towards us. Of course, your guarantee does not mean that he meets the requirements for participating in the Well of Eternity project in terms of knowledge and ability. He still has to prove himself. Gretel breathed a huge sigh of relief. As long as there is the most basic trust, as for knowledge and skills, just give it a chance. As long as you give it a chance, whether it's a paper or practice, senior brother will definitely be able to do it. Eldest brother has done so many experiments with the sun god, and with the guidance of teachers and legends, no one is better than eldest brother in terms of how to start the ore and how to make it burn without exploding. Elder Amat smiled and said nothing. He didn't quite believe that a human could control the Well of Eternity better than the elves who had studied the Well of Eternity for so many years. However, there are specialties in the arts, and it is very possible to surpass the elves in a certain aspect or a particularly small topic. Human beings who are qualified to come to the island will often give them a surprise and bring vitality to the academic research on Yangju Island. Therefore, it should not be a big problem to give the great mage an opportunity to state, discuss, and communicate. Whether he can participate in the project later depends on him. Well, don't worry, I will communicate with them. Of course, the Well of Eternity is quite busy, so it may take a few more days to be cleared. Be patient and don't be in a hurry. Although it was said to be patient and don't be anxious, the Dean of the Magic Academy and the top elders came forward to coordinate, and it turned out that the Well of Eternity project team also wanted to give face. 3 days after Greet visited Grand Elder Amate, certain news came from the Well of Eternity. Invite Archmage Baebo to visit the elders who maintain the Well of Eternity 7 days later, on the day of the full moon. At that time, the elders will decide whether to invite Archmage Baebo to participate in the project based on the on-site statements and debates, and to what extent. Senior brother, you can definitely do it. Greet held the dark green letterhead in one hand and senior brother in the other, beaming. There are so many elves on Everlasting Island, I dare say that no one has exploded so many ores like you. Just stack them up and explode, use spells to stimulate the explosion, and use spells to restrain the explosion. The best experimenter the sun god can be hired casually. Those elves don't even know how much ore they pile up will explode. I told them. Senior brother, let's bring out some more dry goods to surprise them. Please join the project team. Archmage Baebo stared at Gretel's raised eyebrows and couldn't help but laugh. The little guy has both hands used, and he really can't spare them. If he had a third or fourth hand, he would be gesticulating so hard that the whole room would be filled with dance. Even so, he tried hard to express joy and support with his voice and expression. Well, in little Gretel's heart, maybe he, the senior brother, is omnipotent. At most, it's just a little worse than the teacher. Seeing this situation, Archmage Baebo suddenly had the idea of narrowing things down. He lowered his head, his face fell, and he let out a long sigh. Well, what's wrong? What's wrong? The smile on Gretel's face suddenly froze. He grabbed the senior brother's hand with one hand and wanted to bend down to see the other person's face. The distance between the two sides was too close and the posture was awkward. After waiting in fear for a long time, Archmage Baebo finally raised his head. The body is twisted and the eyes are far away. Sigh, I haven't written the paper yet. If the teacher finds out that he didn't even see the paper, but the elves from Yangju Island saw it first, I don't know what the teacher will think. Well. Greet stiffened. When I think of the teacher, I think of thunder and lightning, of roaring in the air, of lightning all over the sky in the demi-plane. Senior brother, what should we do? What should I do? No way. Archmage Baebo spread his hands with a smile. Write the paper first and sort out your ideas. After I participate in the Well of Eternity project and get the results, can the teacher yell at me again? Then, I'm just waiting for senior brother's paper. Wait for senior brother to come to the project meeting and kill everyone. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1319. Although Master Baebo lamented that the paper has not been written yet, in fact, it was not difficult for him to write a paper in 7 days. He has been doing experiments for half a year. Dozens of boxes of ore have been exploded. Moreover, compared with the elf's approach of burning gently, making small explosions gently, and fearing that something might happen anytime and anywhere, his experiment was much wilder. Blow it up every other day, blow it up every other day, and every now and then, you can see tall mushroom clouds rising far, far away in the center of the desert. Strong light, strong wind, and huge fluctuations swept over him. Even though he was hiding in the underground bunker and his mental power was escaping, he was frightened by the outstanding destructive power. As for whether the ore will explode, under what conditions it will explode, and how powerful the explosion will be, Archmage Baebo dares to say that even the teachers don't know as much as he does. After all, the teacher's side doesn't have enough ore first, not enough territory secondly, and thirdly there are no demigods who can rub the ore casually and not feel bad when it explodes. They will never do as many experiments as you. With so many experiments and so much data, Archmage Baebo had absolutely abundant materials when he wrote his thesis. There is only too much data to write down, not enough data. On the 7th day, when he was invited to visit the Well of Eternity project team, Gretel secretly asked his senior brother. How is it? Have you finished writing? It's finished. Archmage Baebo patted the space bag confidently. Greet stretched out his head, but his senior brother spread his fingers and pushed him back. What are you looking at? You'll be there to look at it then. It's really. Greet turned back in frustration. Senior brother is really so stingy, not even letting him take a look in advance. Although he might not be able to understand it after just one glance, moreover, they still have to travel for a long time, and they don't want to let him read the paper to pass the time. Don't even think about it. You read the paper and I control the phantom cold for you, huh? I can't even control the phantom cold I summoned. Ugh, but it's so far away, so boring. The so-called Wangshan race to death. The Well of Eternity project team is at the foot of Wangting Holy Mountain, quite far away from the Magic Academy by the lake. Gretel didn't feel it when he took the airship there before, but now that he was walking overland under the guidance of the elf guide, he felt that the journey was a bit too long. He and his senior brother set off a full day in advance, so that they would not have to spend a day riding the phantom pony or practicing flying skills for a day. It doesn't mean that you will be late, but rushing in that way would be too out of touch with the elegance of a mage. So far. Set off one day in advance and spend a night peacefully at the foot of the holy mountain. Early the next morning, Greet, who was preparing to go to the Well of Eternity, was very surprised to see Elder Amat and Elder Fahim. You two. Didn't we set off together before? Why did it appear now? Haha, who said you can't teleport through a big tree? Elder Fahim haha. From the Magic Academy to the World Tree, there are large and ancient trees of sufficient age along the way. A skilled nature walker can reach directly with less than 10 jumps. Not to mention a legendary master like Elder Fahim, even a natural priest who is over level 10, jumps 10 times, including the rest time in between. It only takes a little more than an hour. Then, if Gretel can increase his speed, Archmage Baebo will not need to spend a whole day on the road, whether it is flying at high speed, teleporting, or other methods. Greet blushed and could only draw circles silently, determined to make up for the lesson. The magic of mages, offensive, defensive, auxiliary, and daily life, must be learned carefully, and must not be held back anymore. After all, magic exists to facilitate daily life, study, and research, right? Elder Emmett carefully looked at Greet's expression, smiled without saying a word, turned around and led them forward. Passing over an ancient tree, another ancient tree, another ancient tree. Gretel was surprised and said, "The Well of Eternity project team is underground." Otherwise, Elder Amat said leisurely. Only when these ores are buried deep enough can they isolate the influence on the tribe to the maximum extent. Only when these ores are buried deep enough can they channel the power of the volcano. The roots of the world tree and ancient trees are deep enough to extend from the top of the holy mountain to the ore. And the elders can only observe directly and respond quickly if they live underground. Greet shut up, turned his head, and said nothing. Live underground? Live next to a nuclear reactor? You can do it? Can't we just be farther away? Can't we observe and control remotely? Obviously, not really. Elder Emmett and Elder Fahim took Gretel and others into a majestic boulder building with overlapping talismans and countless talismans flowing through it. The boulder is surrounded by a circle of ancient trees. Among the branches and leaves of the ancient trees, the figures of elven warriors are looming. On the contrary, at the door of the huge stone building, the two elves with longbows on their backs and sharp blades hanging on their waists feel like pure decorations. This is the largest road into the Well of Eternity. A large number of important supplies are transported from here. Elder Emmett walked along, giving guidance to Gretel. Of course, although the road is wide, defense on the road is still indispensable. If you hadn't said hello in advance today, you would have suffered at least 5 rounds of magic attacks when you walked here. The megalithic building looks majestic and towering, but the space inside is not wide. On the contrary, the corridor Elder Amat took them along could accommodate up to 3 people walking at a time. After walking 20 or 30 meters, you turned your right hand and stepped into an elevator, rumbling downwards. Greet felt the slight weightlessness under his feet and kept making calculations. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters, how deep is this? Is it underground? Before the calculation was completed, the elevator vibrated slightly and stopped quietly. Before the door opened, Gretel suddenly felt a chill and subconsciously took a step back. At the same time, Archmage Baebo stepped forward, intentionally or unintentionally blocking his junior brother behind him. With a slight thought in his mind, all kinds of defensive magic were applied layer by layer. This speed is much faster than Gretel's own shield. Greet was stunned for a moment before he remembered to cast a cloud chamber magic on himself. At the same time, he touched it in the space bag, and the Geiger counter hung on his fingertips and floated out again. The moment it floated out of the shield, the little counter screamed at the top of its lungs. Gretel? Is this the Well of Eternity? Strong radiation area? Did you bring us here right after you started? Oh my God, the elves are seeking wealth and murder. Thanks to @book friends 202121281921411355 and @Lankixio for the 100 starting coins. There are only 3 days left for the double monthly pass period. There are still 542 votes short of the voting target. Everyone, please try harder. Once the vote target is reached, there will be an additional 150 votes. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1320. Fortunately, the defensive magic specially developed to resist radioactivity is very effective. After unfolding, the inner circle of defensive magic was quiet, the cloud chamber did not flicker, and the Geiger counter did not scream. Therefore, Archmage Baebo still took Gretel inside, but kept a close eye on the situation on his junior brother's side. He didn't care about it himself. After all, he had begun to get closer to the legend, and his body had begun to develop into elemental form. A little radioactive influence would make it less easy to fall victim to it. Junior brother is only level 13, he can't afford this. As soon as there is a change, the little junior brother must be protected immediately and thrown to a safe place immediately. After walking through a corridor, stepping through 2 stone gates, and passing through a colorful teleportation array, we finally reached our destination. As soon as he entered the door, Archmage Baebo's heart tugged hard, and he reflexively blocked Greet from behind. What's the situation? What's going on? It's like suffocation, the pressure that makes your chest feel tight and your heart stops beating, overwhelming, rushing towards your face. Ha ha, it's okay. In the room, a petite female elf with a rosy complexion stood up lightly and raised her hand. We have been staying here to maintain the well of eternity, and it is inevitable that some of our strength has been released. We have neglected it. We have neglected it. As he spoke, the pressure on his body was like a giant whale sucking water, quietly recovering it. Beside her, the other 2 elves did not speak, but just smiled along with them. The stress in the room disappeared. Archmage Baebo took a breath and turned to look at Gretel. When he saw him smiling and nodding, he felt relieved. Well, generally speaking, legends always have their own coercion, and those who are relatively weak will tremble a little as long as they stand in front of them. The teacher was generous to them, and along with several other legends, he would not deliberately use power to oppress them. Even so, every time they come to the legendary mage, they have to be extremely careful. However, this is also a good exercise, motivating people and promoting the growth of mental strength. Archmage Baebo confirmed that his junior brother was fine, straightened his expression, and bowed slightly to him. Hello everyone. I am Asa Balba, an 18th level magician from Nevis, Evocation Department, Thunderhorn. I am very happy to come to Evermeet Island and be able to consult with the elders. Andu Silverleaf, nice to meet you. The petite female elf who spoke before nodded in greeting. Beside her, one on the left and one on the right, 2 elves followed and announced their names. Emeta Starflower, nice to meet you. Julant Moonshadow, nice to meet you. The third male elf, with a kind face and half-silver thread in his long grey hair, came over and shook hands with them. Fahim recommended you to us, saying that you have profound knowledge in the Well of Eternity, or in the ore that constructs the Well of Eternity. Can you please explain it in detail? This is the interview, or in other words, it has finally entered the substantive stage. Archmage Baebo perked up and subconsciously sat upright. Our research on secret minerals has been very short-lived and very superficial. It cannot be compared with the elves' thousands of years of research. First they complemented each other, and sure enough, the 3 elf elders from the opposite project team, as well as Elder Amat and Elder Fahim who were sitting on the side, exchanged glances with each other and smiled slightly. Archmage Baebo changed his subject. But in recent years, the way we observe matter, and the research methods, have made considerable progress. So, maybe in some aspects, we have some special discoveries. Elder Fahim nodded slightly as proof. Opposite the long table, the legendary Elder Anjuor Silverleaf smiled with a very friendly smile. You are too humble. Previously, Master Nordmark's research on secret minerals surpassed all of our compatriots. We believe that your research must have a lot for us to learn from. Greet sat upright next to him, pricking up his ears and listening to the process of people carrying people in sedan chairs, or in other words, business exchanges. While listening, I felt itchy on my body and wanted to squirm in my seat, and then squirm again. Oops, just say a few words and get to the point quickly. Fortunately, the time of high-level mages and legendary mages is precious. Everyone exchanged a few business words to confirm each other's goodwill, and Archmage Baebo immediately entered the substantive content. In recent years, our observation of matter has entered the atomic stage. The so-called atoms refer to basic particles that cannot be further divided in chemical reactions. As he spoke, he tentatively looked across. Sure enough, the corners of Elder Anguor Silverleaf's eyes slightly curved, and he raised his hand forward. Ah, we know this. Although it will be a little slower to get Nevis journals on a Virgin Island, for example, half a year or a year, we have still learned from the achievements several years ago. Greet breathed a sigh of relief, and Archmage Baebo also breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness it starts with the basics, that can be excruciating. In the study of secret minerals, we found that this mineral emits a variety of different, very lethal rays, causing a variety of harm to the human body. He nodded to Gretel. I used this ore as a casting material and added Sunfire Explosion to add invisible but very powerful damage to this spell. Regarding long-term damage, Little Greet's research has also been involved. Greet nodded vigorously. Next to Elder Anguor Silverleaf, the other two elders looked at each other and smiled. Yes, we have heard. The Nordmark mages revealed the damage of this ray, thereby saving many of our fellow humans. Many thanks. They stood up side by side and bowed in a very formal manner. Gretel quickly stood up and returned the gift. After another process was completed, Archmage Baebo's face instantly became solemn. However, the most dangerous thing about this kind of ore is that it is particularly easy to explode. If it is activated by magic, it will explode. Even if it is not activated by magic, if it is simply stacked to a certain amount, it will explode. He raised his hand slightly, and a piece of light and shadow came out. The difference between this kind of ore and ordinary ore is that after it emits rays, it turns into another element. During the process of this change, when the rays hit similar elements, they will release very strong energy, and a large number of stacks will cause explosions. This kind of energy can even stir up changes in the surrounding magic. Pieces of light and shadow flew out. Greet was dazzled by the various spell configurations, magic arrays, and complex data. On the other side, the three legendary mages looked increasingly solemn, concentrating and holding their breath without turning their eyes. Soon, they entered into a heated discussion. Greet sat upright, looking left and right. What should I do if I don't understand a word? Tell me quickly whether Senior Brother can participate in the Well of Eternity project. Thanks to @Bendashu for tipping 100,000 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1321. Chapter 1316 Princess, even if he is Christine's disciple. How was the discussion with them, Senior Brother? Can Senior Brother participate in the project? Gretel, full of doubts, followed Archmage Baebo back to his residence. Asked what they were talking about, the Senior Brother simply said a few words, which made him dizzy. When asked if he could participate, the Senior Brother only said, "We have to wait and see, the elves won't decide right away." The problem is, after waiting for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, there is still no reply. On the 4th day, Greet finally couldn't bear it anymore and went to find Elder Fahim. "Why are you more anxious than your Senior Brother?" Elder Fahim shook his head in amusement. Before Greet could ask again, Yo-Yo sighed. "Elves, elves. Even though the crisis is right in front of us, I always feel that there is a lot of time, a lot of time. Gretel was silent. He lowered his head and was silent for a while, then he couldn't help but say again. But isn't this a waste of everyone's time? It's a waste of the elves' time, and it's also a waste of the senior brother's time. If the decision can be made in 3 days, why does it have to be delayed to 7 days? If you procrastinate any longer, the time wasted will be enough for senior brother to make a round trip from the Kingdom of the Sun to Yangju Island and send the paper back. I know, Elder Fahim smiled and nodded to appease. After pondering for a while, he slowly explained. But little Greet, you have to know. To become a legend, their knowledge, theories, and beliefs have become a very solid system. When introducing a new theory or system, they must always be more cautious, study hard, and compare hard. Besides, there are 6 elders in that group, so we have to give them some time to discuss and persuade, right? Gretel is not happy. However, when it comes to the theory of the Well of Eternity, he doesn't understand it. When it comes to difficult places, he can't get a word in at all. 3 days doesn't seem to be too long. The eldest brother didn't show any impatience, and he didn't seem to be willing to take over. Oh, wait. After waiting a few more days, if there was no reply, he would ask Yggdrasil directly. Gretel was waiting impatiently. The elf elders, especially the elders responsible for maintaining the Well of Eternity, had no intention of stalling for time. In fact, after meeting Archmage Baebo, they immediately fell into heated discussions, arguments, and even quarrels. On the first day, the 5 legendary elders, except for the one who was on duty, each had a report and paper by Archmage Baebo spread out in front of them, foaming at the mouth, and fully exchanging opinions. The next day, the discussion venue was moved to the deepest part of the Well of Eternity, in the monitoring room, so that the elders on duty could participate in the discussion. Outside the monitoring room, several disciples of the elder were holding information and whispering to each other, sometimes loudly and sometimes softly. On the 3rd day, more legends participated. This human magician has very profound knowledge in minerals, much more than us, and Juor Silverleaf stood firmly on the side of Archmage Baebo. I feel that for the safety of the Well of Eternity, for the safety of Evermeet Island and all compatriots, he should be invited to participate in the project to restart the Well of Eternity. I'm not saying that his accomplishments are not enough, Julant Moonshadow immediately retorted. But we should also note one thing, after all, he is just a high-level mage. Although he has embarked on the road to becoming a legend, he is not even half a legend. Yes, there is a big difference between the legendary perspective and the non-legendary perspective, another elder immediately agreed. I still think it would be good to ask him to observe from the outside and provide some suggestions. It is best not to participate directly. But so many of our legends have not researched in that direction. This shows that the research direction of Archmage Baebo is still very valuable. After all, it is easy to miss it through peripheral observation. Isn't it bad to let him enter the core so quickly? After all, he is a human being. It doesn't matter if he is a Nordmark mage. After all, he has our blood and has proven his goodwill towards us. But this. Ahem, Anjuor Yunyi coughed loudly twice and knocked on the table. Don't look at people like this. This Archmage Baebo once fought alongside us in the Kingdom of the Sun. Fighting alongside the Sun God, right? The topic quickly derailed. Facts have proved that even the legendary mage cannot curb his desire for gossip. Especially these legendary mages, who guard the Well of Eternity day and night, and have no special sources of information on a daily basis. If you catch one, of course you have to gossip hard and gossip hard. From the origin of Archmage Belbo to his relationship with Little Greed. From the first time he came to the fertile forest to when he sailed across the ocean in an airship. From the papers he once published to the recent experiments he did with Helios. What are the elders discussing? The door of the conference room slid open quietly, and a beauty in a white dress floated in with light steps and a rattan basket in her hand. In the conference room, the heated discussion atmosphere became slightly quiet. Most of the elders turned their heads and smiled at this beauty. "Your Highness! Your Highness! Princess Norrell!" The beauty in the white dress nodded slightly, walked slowly to the table, and put down the rattan basket. With a little care, green leaves automatically flew out from the rattan basket, each holding a small plate of fruit, and floated in front of the legendary elders. "The milk fruit I cultivated has just matured in the past few days. Elders, please try how it tastes. Is there anything that needs improvement? The fruits cultivated by Her Highness the Princess must be delicious." The legends present smiled at each other and each took one. Princess Norrell is the Queen's second daughter and a senior nature walker. She is half a legend and likes to plant flowers and grass every day. The various fruits she cultivated are crisp, sweet, fragrant, and refreshing, and have the effect of accumulating natural power and channeling spiritual power. They are very popular on Yeongju Island. Although the legends do not expect these foods to increase their strength, they are still quite happy to eat delicious food every day. While eating, we inevitably started chatting. We are talking about the great mage Baebo. Everyone has different opinions on whether to invite him to participate in the Well of Eternity project and to what extent. I think that this archmage is not an elf after all. You may need to be cautious when inviting him into the core part. Princess Norrell listened with a smile. Hearing this, the smile on his face faded slightly. "No. I think this mage should still be trustworthy, right? This, Your Highness Princess, you have never dealt with him after all, although he is Christine's disciple, but it's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1322. Chapter 1317. Are you, Christine's disciple? A thin blush appeared on Princess Norrell's cheeks. Her light golden curly hair was spread over her shoulders, and the tips of her hair danced playfully as she walked. On the top of the hair, the wreath made of twigs also trembled slightly, exuding a cool fragrance. On Yeongju Island, no one knows anyone, and no one knows anyone. Especially the royal family, the 12 elven noble families, as well as the legends and quasi-legends. The long years and quiet life have made it almost impossible for everyone to let go of any gossip. As for the time when the Lord of Thunder came to the island, even if it wasn't the biggest gossip in the past century, it ranked among the top 3 among all kinds of fun. I'm not speaking for his disciples just for Christine's sake. Although Princess Norrell blushed, she still sat down calmly and said in a soft voice, "I just think Kristen is such a pure person." As he spoke, he was slightly lost in thought, his eyes far away. In the conference room, there was gentle laughter one after another, and then there was a sudden silence. The legends, especially the female legends, exchanged glances with each other. There was a slight sigh in every pair of eyes. The love between elves and humans, especially the love between elven women and human men, often ends in tragedy. It's not that I don't love you, or that I've changed my mind, but there are always many different ideas between long-lived and short-lived species. The lightning mage was not sincere in his treatment of the princess. When he was on Yeongju Island, he never had any other beautiful girls in his eyes. However, when it comes to further establishing a relationship, his attitude is always only one. "I only have magic in my heart. Before becoming a legend, I will not prioritize anything." But this kind of attitude made the princess's heart linger on him, and she couldn't let it go. During that time, what was often seen in the Magic Academy was thunder mages burying their heads in books, or concentrating on doing various experiments. And the Queen's princess, the most beautiful flower on Everlasting Island, followed the thunder mage not far behind. Give him water, give him books and scrolls, quietly look at his side face. So affectionate, so tender. The lightning mage was not untouched. At the very least, he allowed the princess to move to the position closest to him. Even if you don't regard her as a lover, treat her as a close female friend. However, after learning enough knowledge to leave Yeongju Island to pursue legendary opportunities, he still made a determined decision and never looked back. Princess Noril, on the other hand, must shoulder the responsibilities of being a princess and take over the responsibilities of a queen when needed. She could not leave Yeongju Island and follow her lover to the end of the world. She could only watch him sail away and never return. This separation lasted for many years. And now, when the disciples of the Thunder Mage come to Yeongju Island, the princess still pays attention to their movements, understands their difficulties, and even takes the initiative to speak for them. I just think Christine is such a pure person. The princess looked far away, with a smile in her eyes. Although he was talking to legends, he seemed to be looking at the person in his heart across endless years and thousands of miles away. His disciples, especially those who have reached great heights and have begun to embark on the path of legend, should or will not put their minds on crooked ways, right? The room was quiet, and quiet again. After a while, Elder Enjuo or Silverleaf Legend slowly nodded. That little guy, I mean Master Nordmark, he has a very deep care for the world and is favored by nature. The person he highly recommends should be trustworthy and reliable. She spoke, and Elder Ahmad, who rushed over to participate in the discussion, also nodded slowly. Fahim told me about Master Baebo. He came to the fertile forest several times, and he always accompanied the little guy to do experiments. He didn't go to places where he wasn't invited, and he didn't ask about irrelevant things. At least he doesn't have any ill intentions toward our clan, and is very careful to avoid suspicion. I think such a magician should be credible. Another legend nodded. Before speaking, smile first. Most of the human magicians, especially the high-level magicians who are qualified to come to Yeongju Island, focus on magic. I don't think they will deliberately do anything to harm our people, we can let him try. One legend after another spoke, and soon, more than half of the people agreed. The next morning, Archmage Baebo was notified. The legends he met 3 days ago invited him to go under the World Tree to participate in the restoration of the Well of Eternity. First of all, don't go. Archmage Baebo's first reaction was to arrange for Gretel. That place is too radioactive and too dangerous. Once the defensive spell on my body is broken, I can still survive with my level, but you can't. But Gretel is still a little bit probing. The senior brother pressed him back without hesitation. Is your research direction the Well of Eternity? Will studying this thing help you advance? No. What would I do without you? Your current task is to make up for the foundation. I study quietly in the academy. Whatever I learn, I will take the test later. Woo. Gretel was held down honestly. Alas, even though I said start with the basics before, when it comes time to actually take classes with the cubs, it's still so shameful. After making arrangements for his junior brother, Archmage Baebo went to the project team alone. This time, as soon as he stepped out of the elevator and entered the conference room, he was plunged into mountains and seas of information. From the Well of Eternity in the Great Forest to the Well of Eternity on Evermeet Island. From the fragmentary information written down by the Elves based on their memory after the Big Bang, to the detailed information of the new version of the Well of Eternity. From the deepest structure and operation mode to the isolation, shielding and protection methods. From the way the Well of Eternity connects to the mysterious locks, to its maintenance records every day, every week, every year. Archmage Baebo watched with fascination. 1 hour, 5 hours, 12 hours, 1 day, 2 days, he completely forgot to eat, forget to rest, and even forgot to meditate. Fortunately, the high-level mage's physical fitness was there. If he didn't strictly abide by 8 hours of sleep, there would be no problems in the short term, which prevented him from passing out. After staring in the dark for an unknown amount of time, Archmage Baebo finally felt that he had figured something out. He fell into the data room and fell into a deep sleep. I don't know how long I slept, but I was awakened by the thunderous stomach, and floated out like a wandering spirit. Unkempt hair and pale face. There is no need to look in the mirror, I already feel like a living person. The corridor swayed for a while, and suddenly I saw a figure flashing past. The white skirt is fluttering, slender and light. There is no need to look back, just this back view is already stunning. Archmage Baebo didn't know where he got the strength to catch up quickly. After chasing her to the end of the corridor, the elf woman slowly turned around. Sure enough, she had a beautiful face, the only one he had ever seen in his life. His expression is dignified and his eyes are charming. The look in his eyes seemed to be yearning, as if he was feeling lost, and he wanted to speak but gave up. Archmage Baebo's heart felt hot and his steps were a little faster. He rushed to the opponent, stopped 5 steps away, and performed a mage salute. "Hello, I am. Are you Christine's disciple? Thanks to it, Yunfan always has new ideas for the 500 starting coins reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Jialan 2020. Chapter 1323. Christine. 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 Archmage Baebo's mind raced once, twice, or 3 times, and then his heart began to beat wildly. Christine is not a common elf name, in fact, it is a human name. Moreover, it is a human name with religious connotations. Its meaning, originally, was followers of the Lord of Light. To this day, in many kingdoms under the jurisdiction of the glorious Holy See, parents still name their children with this name. Among the people Archmage Baebo knew, there was only one person with this name who could be related to the elves. His teacher, His Excellency the Lord of Thunder. This elf beauty, he is the teacher's. Unfortunately, according to the established rules of Nevis, people generally refer to His Majesty the Legend by titles such as Lord of Thunder, such as Immortal, such as Jade Crown. This reference ranges from personal address to almost all official documents and journals, with few exceptions. If things go on like this, except for close friends and calling you by their names in person, everyone else basically only knows their titles. And disciples like Master Baebo. Although he didn't know the name of the Lord of Thunder, he just knew it. When someone mentions it in front of someone, it takes a while and my head spins a few times before I can remember it. And when I think about it, there are 5 thunder blows. Teacher, when have you been to Elf Island? What did you do on Elf Island? Have you met anyone? Who is this elf lady to you? What kind of history have you had with her? Why did she say Christine in front of me with such a look and tone? I really don't know anything. The teacher never told me anything. This elf lady, how should I call you? Is it okay to call you Shi Niang? The teacher's name is indeed Christine. Archmage Baebo stood up straight and responded respectfully. Opposite me, the elf lady smiled. Don't be nervous, it's okay. My name is Norrell. I just met him when he was on the island. By the way, how is he doing now? Miss Norrell, the look in your eyes and the tone of your voice don't sound like you just know me. Archmage Baebo cursed, but his face was still respectful. Teacher has been a legendary mage for many years, and his title is Lord of Thunder. He is currently on duty in Nevis and is in charge of the Thunder Horn. He is a very respected legendary mage in the evocation department. Lord of Thunder. Norrell chewed on the title slowly and smiled. It's really a title that fits his character. It's just that he has no creativity at all and is straightforward. She dared to say this, but Archmage Baebo didn't dare to accept it. He stood up straight in front of Miss Norrell, his eyes slightly lowered, focusing on her beautiful and round chin, and he heard her ask again. Other than that, how is his daily life? What does he like? What are his hobbies? Does he have many friends? Does he have? He suddenly stopped here. Apparently, he was embarrassed to continue asking about something. Archmage Baebo quickly completed. Teacher's daily life is pretty good. The council provides for the legendary mage, which can ensure that his daily life is rich and generous. Like, in addition to liking magic, as far as we can see, the teacher likes to play coffee latte art. He doesn't drink much, just playing. A faint chuckle rose. Archmage Baebo raised his gaze slightly and saw Miss Norrell in front of him, smiling soothingly and nostalgically. He actually likes to play this. In the past, when I took him to drink tea or eat snacks, he always found it annoying and a waste of time. He wished he could spend all his time studying. In fact, when the teacher is playing coffee latte art, he is probably exercising his magic control. Archmage Baebo cursed, but did not dare to complain directly, and said slowly. Teacher, I still have some friends. Among the legendary mage, there are quite a few people who can speak well. However, he has never been married, and we disciples have not seen any close ladies around him. The more he spoke, the softer his voice became, almost tremblingly. Miss Norrell smiled softly again, followed by a distant sigh. There's none. No, generally speaking, there are very few people who actively pursue legendary mage. Why do I say this? Why should I tell this elf lady this? Is this the future master's wife? In other words, is she a cheap master's wife who is destined to have no connection? Did I say too much? Or say too little? Why did she ask me instead of asking others? Little Greed has obviously been on the island for so long, why did she come to block me without asking a single word? Archmage Baebo felt sad in his heart. However, he also knew that if the other party wanted to know the current situation of the Lord of Thunder, it would definitely not be the current situation in the past few years, but preferably the current situation of more than 10 years or even decades. Of course, you have to ask an older disciple like him about this kind of thing. What can you ask a junior disciple who has just started teaching for a few years? Christine. Miss Norrell smiled slowly and sighed, looking into the distance, obviously in a trance. Archmage Baebo stood with his hands and feet tied up and waited for a long time before he saw her come back to her senses and smile. I understand. In the future, if you encounter any need for help, you can come to me. If you want to contact your teacher, remember to tell me. Archmage Baebo couldn't agree. Miss Norrell raised her hand, and a small yellow flower fell from her hair crown and floated into the hands of Archmage Baebo. Just say it to it. As long as I'm on Evermeet Island, I can receive it. After speaking, he nodded with a smile and drifted away. Archmage Baebo stood stiffly holding the yellow flowers. It wasn't until her figure disappeared from sight that he breathed a sigh of relief and almost leaned against the wall. Who is this lady? Which family and what identity? I don't know anything except that she has a quiet and broad natural aura, and she is probably a half-legendary nature walker. Even when I reported it to the teacher, I didn't know what to say except my name. Hey, are you here? A laughing voice suddenly came from behind. Archmage Baebo turned around and saw his designated contact person in the project team, a young elf with brown hair, walking quickly. While raising his hand to say hello, he stretched his neck and looked into the distance, his eyes a little wandering. The one just now. She said her name was Norrell. Yo. That's amazing. I just came here a few days ago and I met Her Royal Highness the Princess. Your Highness, Princess. Teacher, your ability to seduce beautiful women is really amazing. Seeing that you were so stoic in Nevis, you couldn't get close to any beautiful woman. It turns out that you are the most beautiful one I have ever seen. Archmage Baebo's legs were almost weak. The person approached quickly and lowered his voice. But let me remind you, this person has a sweetheart. She may come to see you just to ask for news about her sweetheart, so don't fall into it. Did I eat the heart of a bear and the gall of a leopard? Not to mention how strong my charm is and how likely it is that a girl will fall in love with me. Even if she does fall in love with me, I don't have the guts to compete with the teacher. Thanks to @Yuxiakagayo for the 5,000 starting coins reward. It's the last day for double monthly passes. The cat rolls, stretches its paws, does front flips, back flips, and 720-degree flips. Please give me your monthly vote. There are still 121 votes short of the target. During the double period, 1 vote is worth 2 votes. Everyone will cast 61 more votes and we will be there. Only 61 votes are needed. In the last 12 hours, everyone will search the ticket warehouse again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1324. I definitely won't. Archmage Baebo smiled uglier than crying and sent the lively elf liaison away. After this frightening trip, he vented all his depression and horror into the cooperation. After eating a full meal and taking care of himself, he just sat down for a meeting when he inherited the characteristics of the Lord of Thunder and began to seize on the weaknesses of the elves and spray them wildly. The radioactivity here is too strong. If you stay here for a long time, you will definitely get chronic diseases and slowly die. It is obvious that we can protect everyone's safety by insulating it with thick enough lead plates and doing good filtration and ventilation, so why not do it? Do we have to wait until we are seriously ill before using limited prayer to cure it? Oh, even the limited wish technique was just invented by my junior brother. What to do before this? You just rely on your physical body to carry it? The sacrifice of going forward and succeeding. Facing Archmage Baebo's roar, which was a bit like the Lord of Thunder, the faces of the legendary mages were ugly. Don't they know there's danger underground? There's danger near the Well of Eternity? Oh, as for rays, they really haven't studied them before. However, there is danger here. Being close for a long time will damage your health. Don't they know? They also tried their best. Between the safety and comfort of the ancient tree and the elves, they tried their best. Anjuoer Silverleaf reluctantly explained. We have tried our best, but the power of the Well of Eternity has always been guided by the World Tree and the Ancient Tree. The radioactivity spreads upward along the roots of the tree and cannot be isolated at all. The breathing of tree roots is the breathing of the earth. The main root, thick lateral roots, and root hairs thinner than a human hair are all stranded deep into the ground. They suck in the water, the wind, and the energy in the earth. While guiding, sorting, and condensing these energies, it also brings the radioactive danger from the depths of the ground to the soil above. Then, why not at least cover the place where people live with thick lead? But in that case, the ancient tree and the world tree will be very uncomfortable. The roots cannot travel freely and breathe freely, which will increase their pain. Is it more uncomfortable to have their roots traveling through lead or to have their roots soaked in the Well of Eternity? Well, there is no other way to let them restrain the Well of Eternity. We can't increase their pain anymore. Then at least tidy up the room first, Archmage Baebo clicked, throwing out a bunch of plans. 3 zones and 2 channels, screen doors, isolation measures, spraying, decontamination. Don't always rely on spells for defense. There are risks when people fall asleep or when spells deform while walking. Protect people first, and then you can slowly solve the problem. These plans were all made by Greet and were used to study bacteria and viruses. After he came to the elf forest, he copied the plan and used it to study the ore, which effectively isolated the dust. I have always thought that with the population and fertility rate of the elves, you should want to protect every compatriot. You cannot withstand such a powerful harm with your body. Archmage Baebo stared, slapped the table, foamed at the mouth, and threw out his plan and monitoring results. It was so easy to convince the elves. Comprehensive shielding. Comprehensive decontamination. First of all, tidy up our working environment so that we can monitor the situation in the Well of Eternity. The environmental base is so high, how to monitor the reaction of the ore? A legendary elder led the team to arrange for people to collect lead ore, smelt it, cast it, and renovate the corridor. More legendary elders began to listen to Archmage Baebo's speech. How to use the Well of Eternity and the ore without harming the world tree and ancient trees. These ores, in addition to exploding, can also burn slowly. During the combustion process, they can also release a large amount of energy. Seal the Well of Eternity, let it burn slowly and supply energy slowly to guide the power of the volcano, and then supply the power of the volcano to the mystery lock. What is the current difficulty with this plan? Can't you maintain uniform and stable combustion? Can't you maintain a stable energy supply? So far, what is the energy output curve of your Well of Eternity? Should we only rely on the world tree and ancient trees to accumulate energy and flatten peaks and valleys? Archmage Baebo couldn't help but think of what the Lord of Thunder had said about Gretel's generator several years ago. It is very small and weak, and the energy it supplies is not as good as the lightning at the fingertips of a thunder and lightning mage. The energy it can output for Nevis is nothing compared to the lightning guided by the Tower of Babel. But it's stable. There is no need to rely on the wind, clouds, thunder, and lightning in the sky, or the energy extracted from the ground. As long as there are enough workers to dig coal out of the mines to fill the furnaces, or as long as there is a steady supply of water in the rivers, it is a force we can control. This kind of power has unlimited development possibilities. And now, is he going to use a similar method to guide the Well of Eternity, something that the elves have used for thousands or tens of thousands of years? Archmage Baebo took a deep breath and felt his blood boiling. He had a hunch that this was the first time he would be able to embark on the legendary road. According to previous research, there are two very similar but slightly different elements in the secret ore. We call them isotopes. The ones that can burn and explode are only the extremely rare ones. Archmage Baebo talked eloquently, tried hard to explain his ideas, and tried hard to get the control of the project. At the same time, Gretel was struggling desperately. According to his wish, after discussing with Elder Ahmad, Elder Fahim really threw him together with a group of cubs. Although it is said to be a cub, it is actually quite young. The real age is generally over 20 years old, and some are in their 30s or even 40s. In the eyes of elves, all those who have not reached adulthood are cubs and should be left in the academy to learn basic knowledge. Types of vegetation, types of birds and beasts. How to cultivate plants, how to care for birds and animals, how to communicate with them correctly. How to properly develop your physical fitness, how to run, how to shoot arrows, how to advance in battle. The basis of magic, the basis of natural magic, transforming into a bear, a leopard, a wolf, a swift, a goshawk, a peregrine falcon. Greet. What's the name of this grass? What does it do? Gretel was confused. This kind of grass, you give me a seed and you don't let me take it in my hand and ask, how can I tell it with just my eyes? Gretel. How many babies does a fox give birth to in one litter? How many babies does it give birth to in a year? Gretel was confused. Foxes are not commonly used experimental animals, I didn't know. Let me recall what the book says. Gretel. Transform into a wolf. Run. Run. Gretel was confused. I've learned how to become a bear, I've learned how to become a leopard, I've learned how to become a wolf, allow me to slow down. Is it too late for me to say I don't want to study anymore? It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1325. Greet was a student in the Academy's junior class. Sirara had learned, no, played like a duck to water in the Academy's junior class. There is such a big gap mainly because Sirala has no pressure to study. Among the flowers, plants, and trees, choose the ones that look good and identify them. Choose the fruits that taste good and identify them. What are those that don't look good and taste bad? There is no need to learn from animals and monsters that can't defeat me, and there is no need to learn from those who can defeat me. It's all in the inheritance and memory of the dragon clan. Magic. Basics of magic. Pick and choose, learn a little bit for fun, most of them are engraved in instinct. Therefore, Cyrilla's greatest pleasure was to stay next to the training ground, clapping her hands and cheering Gretel on. Gretel! Run! 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 Jump! A group of grey and furry things rushed out quickly. After running a few steps, there was a tree trunk lying in front of him. The grey wolf jumped up with all his strength and jumped over the tree trunk. When he landed, his left front foot tripped over his right front foot and he fell miserably to the side. Bones rolling, rolling several times. On the grass nearby, two half-grown grey wolves and a fat black bear were running hard. They were hit by the side and rolled into a pile. Ouch! 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 Well. On the sidelines of the training ground, the elf instructor responsible for guiding the cubs shook his head and sighed. The cubs that have just left their parents and come to be trained cannot jump or run, and they will fall when they run too fast, so forget it. All the dolls are like this, and they are used to it. However, you are a guy who has reached a high level, a nature walker who is deeply favored by the world. It has been 5 days, and you are still stumbling into the most basic grey wolf? It was easy to change. I can't run or jump. I can still fall when I jump. By the way, you can't speak in wolf form yet. The two cubs next to you can run better than you. Being so clumsy, how did you get from the old world to the new world, and then all the way to Everlasting Island? You must have suffered a lot. Thinking of this, the elf instructor, who was no longer young, felt affection for him. Such a small cub, in terms of age, is not the largest among this group of cubs, it is even considered the youngest. In terms of educational resources, other people's cubs have been under the knees of their parents since they were young, and taught them hand by hand. This little cub, I heard, left its mother when it was a child, and lost its father not long after. In terms of achievements, such a young child is already a high-level nature walker. He must have worked very, very hard to reach his current state, right? In order to come to Yangju Island and see his mother as soon as possible, he must have put all his time and energy into the direction that would allow him to advance. Alas, poor child. Now that we have arrived at Yangju Island, there is no need to be afraid or anxious. As long as we are here, a little cub like you can train and grow with peace of mind. Don't be greedy for speed. Go back. Run again. Woo. A few cubs rolled into a ball. You slap me, and I slap you. Greet suffered a lot in this kind of fight. After being hit several times, he got up from the bottom of the pile of cubs. The instructor has always ignored such playful fights. The cubs have always learned to control their bodies and learn how to sneak, run, ambush and hunt in such fights. Just tripping, bumping, and patting can even help enhance their friendship. Looking back as adults, it is also a very good memory. Greet stumbled, returned to the starting line, and started running again. This time, he was fully focused and did not dare to be distracted in the slightest. He completed one lap smoothly, and then another lap in a moment. Then, the elf instructor on the sidelines waved his hand, and the earth bulged and sank, Shrubs grew, thorns weaved into a web. Soon, the track in the training ground changed its appearance. There are more places where you need to jump, crawl, walk on the balance beam, and go around in circles. Greet's vision went dark. This is from a 400-meter plastic track to a 400-meter obstacle course. The legendary I would rather run 5 kilometers than 400 meters. Don't train me like this. I am a mage. It's a mage. Why do I need to take the form of a grey wolf, a black bear, and a leopard and run around here in the form of a familiar figure? Little guys, work harder. If you complete this track today, you can rest. A group of furry cubs turned around, jostled each other, and rushed onto the modified runway. Gretel stumbled to the end, ran a dozen steps, jumped up, and wanted to cross the pit. Thump! He fell directly to the bottom of the pit. Ouch! There was a long howl from the pit. At the bottom of the pit, a half-sized black bear cub was crushed by him and screamed in dissatisfaction. Grey wolves are no match for the size of black bears. Even against a half-sized black bear, the grey wolf suffers a bit. Under the pit, after a ping-pong, bang, and bang, a roar suddenly sounded. Gretel changed from the grey wolf form to the black bear form. Seamless switching between different forms, the elf instructor smiled and made a few notes on his notebook. Very good, potential is something that can only come out if you push it hard. The next goal is to learn to talk while running. Gretel. Change back to wolf form. Change back. Your mission now is to master the wolf form. Gretel was dejected, his ears and tail drooped, and he transformed back into his wolf form. After a few hard jumps from the pit, I finally jumped back to the ground and started running again. Jump over the trench. Take a running start and jump over the wall. He got down on all fours and rustled under the thorns. Run along the fallen logs. Hey, the little kid ran pretty well. The elf instructor raised the corner of his mouth, shook his hand, and the log was quietly covered with a layer of light. Grease technique, the ultimate reduced version. Specially used to provide extra meals to cubs to improve their balance ability. Boom! The grizzly bear running at the front tilted its feet and fell down. Bang bang! A grey wolf behind the grizzly bear fell from the other side of the log. It fell on the grass and rolled several times, whimpering and refusing to move. Brush, oh, it's about to fall. It's going to fall. Gretel couldn't help but slip on the sole of his foot. If you try to grasp the log with all your strength, even if your feet are bent to the limit, you won't be able to grasp it at all. I wanted to dig into the log with my nails, but the grey wolf form was not the leopard form, so my nails couldn't pop out at all. Try harder, 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 and you can only watch as your body becomes more and more crooked, leaning more and more to the side. I don't want to fall. Suddenly, a gentle breeze blew around him. Not big, not violent, not even able to straighten his body. However, she lifted him lightly and let him fall to the ground without hearing any movement. Featherfall technique. The elf instructor's eyes lit up. Casting a spell while changing form. I actually forced this move out. Thanks at O for looking at the heavy artillery and for the reward of 1,500 starting coins.